It's the most sensational murder trial you may know nothing about because it's getting no media coverage.
The crimes took place in an abortion clinic in Philadelphia, and almost all of the victims in this case are unborn babies. Gary Lane has the story.
Dr. Kermit Gosnell is charged with killing a woman patient and 7 babies allegedly born alive at his abortion clinic in inner-city Philadelphia. Gosnell could face the death penalty. 8 former employees have already pleaded guilty, some to third-degree murder. They've testified about the bizarre and often chaotic practices at the clinic, including some of the horrible things they saw. One said she saw aborted babies move at least twice. Another said she snipped the spines of at least 10 babies. And another said she thought one baby could have lived if it had not been aborted. She cried as she said she thought he was at least 30 weeks, around 7.5 months along. Gosnell himself later joked the baby was so big he could have walked to the bus stop. Gosnell's lawyer disputes that any babies were born alive, and his former lawyer, Bill Brennan, says the trial will take some time.
Between death penalty, length of service, and the abortion issue, and when you factor that in, I mean, it got international attention when it broke. It's going to be a long, difficult process.
Although the Associated Press has reported on the trial, it has received virtually no national media coverage. That's led some conservatives and at least one liberal to criticize the media for ignoring the case. Liberal analyst Kirsten Powers wrote in USA Today Thursday, "Let me state the obvious. This should be front-page news. You don't have to oppose abortion rights to find late-term abortion abhorrent or to find the Gosnell trial eminently newsworthy. The deafening silence of too much of the media, once a force for justice in America, is a disgrace." Gary Lane, CBN News.
It's like if you run an abortion clinic, you get a free pass. That's what's going on. The news also this week about a Planned Parenthood clinic that was unsanitary. They weren't scrubbing down the tables. They weren't sterilizing instruments. There's a call here for inspections. The part of that story that's amazing is that clinic in Philadelphia, they wouldn't have been caught if it hadn't been for prescription violations. That's what started the investigation, and then when they opened the doors, they found a horror show inside. And for it not to be covered is absolutely amazing. CBN News will be bringing you more coverage of this trial from Philadelphia. And now we'll turn to another story. An Army officer's policy email has led to a quick response from 2 leading Christian groups. Wendy Griffith has that story from the CBN newsroom. Wendy?
Gordon, the email calls the 2 Christian organizations, quote, hate groups. Charlene Israel tells us what was in the email and what the 2 groups have to say about it.
The email came from a Lieutenant Colonel Jack Rich, based in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The 14-page document was addressed to subordinates. It labeled 2 conservative pro-family organizations, the Family Research Council and the American Family Association, as domestic hate groups. One section of the email reads, "The religious right in America has employed a variety of strategies in its efforts to beat back the increasingly confident gay rights movement. Many of its leaders have engaged in the crudest type of name-calling." And it said, "Just want to ensure everyone is somewhat educated on some of the groups out there that do not share our Army values."
It's outrageous that FRC and the American Family Association would be designated as domestic hate groups by our own military, particularly Family Research Council.
Brian Fisher of the American Family Association says the Pentagon's information comes from the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group that produced a so-called hate map used by a man who pleaded guilty to an attack on a security guard at Family Research Council headquarters in Washington last summer.
The first thing that we need to see happen is for the Pentagon to distance itself from this email and then from the Southern Poverty Law Center. This is a thoroughly discredited source of information. They've designated FRC and AFA as hate groups simply because we disagree with them on the issue of homosexuality. Well, disagreement is not hatred, and speaking the truth about homosexual behavior is not hate speech. So it's a completely outrageous and unfounded allegation.
The email story came after reports last week that an Army training brief also listed both organizations as hate groups. The Army told Fox News there's no attack on Christians or those who hold religious beliefs. But retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin of the Family Research Council tells CBN News the Army needs to take a strong stand on religious freedom for Christians.
The Army needs to come out with a statement that is very clear in supporting the religious liberties of Christians, just as they have with the liberties of other organizations in our military today.
Charlene Israel, CBN News.
The Internal Revenue Service is using its computers to track the online activities of Americans as it tries to find tax cheats. The IRS has massively upgraded its computing power in recent years, and U.S. News and World Report says the tax agency is putting together a huge amount of personal information on taxpayers, from eBay auctions to Facebook posts, credit card and electronic payments, individual internet addresses, emailing patterns, and more. The IRS can then compare the information they gather with people's tax returns, but the potential for surveillance has some people worried. One tax law expert from Yale tells U.S. News, quote, "I am sure people will be concerned about the use of personal information on databases in government, and those concerns are well taken. There should be safeguards." You can find all the info on this story by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Gordon?
Well, it's amazing what the IRS is doing, and when you start wondering why in the world is the IRS interested in what I put up on Facebook, well, the excuse for it is they're trying to catch tax cheats, and the deal is, okay, you claim on your tax returns that you take a business trip, but then you're posting online that you're visiting family at the same time. So that's their justification for it, but it does. This is Big Brother. And when you start thinking everything you're doing online now is being tracked by a huge government computer, and IRS agents are going through that looking for profile information, and then in the event of an audit, all of that data is then available to the agent giving you the audit, it does bring a chill down your spine, and you start wondering, where have we gone as a country? If all of this information is free to them without a warrant, then there is no more privacy, and it will start driving behavior the other way. Would you still want to be on Facebook? Would you still want to be sending emails? Would you still want to be doing that kind of behavior if you know the IRS is going to track it? This does have real-world consequences. There was a criminal trial recently for someone who was using an illegal tax dodge. And they found out in the sentencing how the IRS knew. They had gotten a list of clients from a so-called tax expert who was operating out of Switzerland, and his list of clients then became the audit targets for that year for the IRS. So they're out there, they're snooping, and they're looking over your shoulder.
Boy, the number of man hours and just the number of people it would take to do something like that.
Well, it's not people anymore.
Well, I guess
it's
so.
all computer algorithms, and the amount of computing power that the IRS now has is phenomenal. They literally were able to take all the electronic filed returns and process them in less than a day. That used to take 4 months.
Wow.
So they've got some really big machines. They've got a lot of computer power.
President Obama has awarded an Army chaplain the Medal of Honor posthumously for his extraordinary heroism during the Korean War. Amul Kupan was known by fellow soldiers as a saint and a blessing from God. His nephew accepted the award from the president Thursday. Kupan was known as Father Kupan. He saved a fellow soldier from being executed, and he led prayer services in captivity. He was persecuted for his faith, but never lost it. He died as a POW at the age of 35. Operation Blessing is helping to relieve hunger through agriculture programs in the African country of Niger. When floods hit the village of Mali, pretty much everything was wiped out, including the crops most families survived on. That's when Operation Blessing boarded small boats setting out to bring help and hope to Mali. OB teams worked to fix the village's only source of drinking water. They also brought seeds for villagers to replant their gardens. The harvest from those seeds will help relieve some of the hunger that has plagued that area. And you can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org.